When in doubt, put your CEO out front. Goldman charging higher and higher after the investment bank put its top gun in the earnings call pilot seat. The stock is up nearly 10% with just 15 minutes left to trade. To the man who took you inside Goldman's playbook days before today's earnings call.
I told ya. Where shall I begin?
How did I know that you were going to say,
where shall I begin?
I told you?
Oh, you didn't know about the Dr. Evil impersonation, right? You didn't know that was coming, but you knew the other one was coming.
Getting old?
Well, I like
Okay, let's get to it.
I like I hurt my arm a little, patting myself on the back there.
Yeah, I can see that.
Screwed my shoulder.
Dislocation.
But in any event, listen, I think he did what he had to do. I think the fact that he said that mainly the Malaysian fund scandal, which it looks like Goldman is wrapped very deeply in this. I mean, they created the fund. They helped them create the fund as a way to do infrastructure for the country. One of their top bankers has been indicted, I believe, as part of this investigation. That
former bankers,
because they used the money for personal reasons and not essentially to do what they were supposed to do. Goldman underwrote the bonds. There's a question of whether they disclose any of the funny business that clearly, or it looks like, one of their executives knew. So they're in the soup on this. I think the good part is he came out and addressed that specifically. He said it hurt our reputation. He said it's not hurt our business just yet, and I think that's one of the reasons why the stock is up. And you know, I think this is. I mean, he's a decent CEO, and he sounded good on that call. I heard a little bit of it, and didn't hear the whole thing. But I thought he sounded very honest and upfront, and kind of un-Goldman-like. You know what I'm saying? Usually, this is a firm that like hides behind stuff, that speaks in sort of bureaucratese, and doesn't. I mean, he sounded like a normal guy mostly on that call, explaining these things. So I think that's good. They still have a business model problem. I don't care what anybody says. Look what happened. They had a lousy December, and I knew this would happen. They would make up with it with some revenues from investment banking, kind of, and then they probably pulled something out of their hat. Maybe a private equity investment. I got to look at the numbers a little closely. They still have a business model problem. Like J.P. Morgan, for better or worse, I think is way too big. It should be smaller. I really think that they have a business model which makes up for the losses. They're big enough. We have sound. I just hear in my ear. We have sound on what? Mr. Solomon speaking. Can we? Okay. Let's go to it.
Let's listen to the CEO.
I'm not in any way, shape, or form not aware of all the noise in the press and all the articles. And, I read them, I watch them as you do, and I, for a moment, would not say that the impact of this is a reputational dent to the firm that we have to and will work through.
He called you noise.
Yeah, I think he was referred to me. Because by the way, they're going nuts on all the stories I'm doing, and I'm getting these nasty emails from them. Oh, this isn't news. Blah 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 blah.
Well, it actually has had a salubrious effect on the stock right now. This is really good for them.
That's a Dr. Evil term. Salubrious.
Yeah, it's SAT word.
It's like insolent. But it did, and I think being honest helps. I still think they have a business problem and business model problem. Anyway, you want to go to talk about?
I want to talk about Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan because yes, he just spoke in the last couple of hours, right down the street, Times Square, at the New York Economic Club. I have to tell you, Charlie, it was a Q&A. It was on the record, but I was furiously writing stuff down because when they brought up Brexit, he specifically talked about the fact that he said a hard Brexit would be disastrous for Great Britain. He said, we're prepared at J.P. Morgan for a hard Brexit. He said that J.P. Morgan has spent he said, I think $100 million or so. He was throwing that number out.
Right.
Just to prepare for it, because he said at J.P. Morgan we try and absolutely model for 12 different scenarios, take the worst, and make sure we're ready for that.
Why does it matter? I mean, if they have a hard Brexit,
because globally, They had so many operations in the UK, in London, Canary Wharf.
If you can't do easily cross-border trades and everything, which between their London unit and the German unit, that becomes a problem, which if they have a hard Brexit, they won't be able to do that.
He said that they had no choice at J.P. Morgan. They could not be in a position where they wake up the day after Article 50 kicks in, where it's over. He said March 19th, 20th. I guess that would be right before the Brexit. He said we'd be unable to do business in Europe.
Right. Most of the firms have done this. You know, they're preparing for a hard Brexit. If it doesn't happen, that's great. If it does, they're prepared. And again, it's because they can't do business easily. We should also point out he mentioned the shutdown, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He mentioned the government shutdown. Pretty much said what he said yesterday.
That it could cause economic
dislocations. And he also said, come on. The whole point of a democracy is to compromise. He wants to see more compromise. But one more thing on Brexit. Right. Specifically, he said, it pretty much is very clear who holds the leash here. He said it is not a negotiation of an exit for the UK. It's a surrender. He said it's 100% up to what Europe wants. Britain has no choice.
By the way, I love Jamie. I've known him since neither of us had gray hair. Let me tell you something. He's
Hold on. Who are you talking about? You and Jamie.
Yeah, me and Jamie.
He's going to say me.
No, not you. Big red over here. But anyway, he is such a globalist. I mean, listen, I hate that term because I get called, these Twitter trolls attack me as a globalist.
Well, what do you want to be? A jingoistic, narrow-minded person?
But
I'm glad he's a globalist.
No, but I think Britain needs to, I think most countries, listen, we're not in their shoes. We don't have some foreign body telling us what to do.
Right. He did say, is it a bad thing that the UK wants to extricate itself from a sclerotic European Union? He said, no, that's not bad, but think of what you're doing and be prepared for it and make sure it's done properly.
Well, she had a pretty good, I think Theresa May had a pretty good way of dealing with it. It's just, Parliament is insane.
We got to go.
We got to go. By the way, I'll see you Monday. I'm going to be in Florida for a couple of days.
Oh, I'm so disappointed.
I'm going to come back with a really nice tan.
Come back with a story or two.
I'm going to come back red like Donald Trump.
Thank you.